Welcome into the Time Skew Sunday morning live stream. We are once again back here, Week 16, championship week for most people in fantasy football. Once again, I'm here. My name is Pride. Also along with me is Tones. Tones, how are you doing on this fine Sunday morning?
Great. The Bucks clinched yesterday, so that's fantastic. I'm in a championship today. I'm in a third place game or two today, and we got a great slate of football on today as well. And we're sandwiched in between a couple of holidays here, so I hope everybody's having a good time off if you are off work, and I hope everybody is trying to win their championships today or play for their championship for Week 17.
Yeah, sandwiched right between two holidays. We're going to have New Year's this upcoming week. Had a great Christmas, got some sweatpants. that's mostly what I got for Christmas, but
you can never go wrong with sweatpants.
Yeah, I did definitely need some, but also got some great football for Christmas. Obviously, a lot of people got their Christmas gifts in Alvin Kamara's 6-touchdown game. That was insane. I'm glad I wasn't playing anyone this week who had Alvin Kamara.
There was actually an error in one of my leagues for my third place matchup. It showed that I was playing Alvin Kamara, and I messaged my commissioner. I'm like, hey, you got my matchup wrong here. And he's like, yes, sorry about that. And he fixed it. And I'm like, thank gosh, man.
Yeah, I think in PPR leagues, he scored 57 points. That was insane. But we also had some great matchups yesterday. Obviously, the Buccaneers with an insane just blowout victory over the Lions. Do you have anything?
I loved every minute of it. We got our revenge for Detroit taking the playoff spots away from us 2 times in the past 8 to 10 years or so. In 2010, Detroit cost us the playoffs by getting a phantom offensive pass interference called, and in 2016, Detroit snuck in over us. So I'm glad we were able to full throttle victory over them. Gronk was heavily involved. If you started him in fantasy, he got your team a couple of touchdowns. Antonio Brown got a touchdown. Mike Evans had over 100 yards and touchdowns. Godwin touchdown. Leonard Fournette touchdown. It was a good day to have Bucks yesterday in fantasy, and it was a hell of a day to be a Buccaneers fan. One oddity of yesterday, though, was that middle game, Amazon Prime and Twitch only. Pride, were you able to find that one when you were skirmishing around, or were you not able to watch?
I actually did. Thankfully, I do have Amazon Prime, so I was able to watch that game. Yeah, I don't know why it was so why it's just put on Amazon Prime and Twitch. I mean, Amazon Prime I can kind of get just because Amazon's so big, but Twitch, I don't really understand that. But it was an interesting game nonetheless. I mean, especially for me, I do like players from the University of Iowa, and so it was nice seeing CJ Beathard be passable in that game. Really surprised. The Cardinals, I would have guessed, would have known that the 49ers would just continuously run the ball, but for some reason they could not stop Jeff Wilson. If you did have Jeff Wilson, he got you over 160 yards rushing in the game against the Cardinals. Just a really great day. Or it was actually 183. Didn't get any touchdowns, unfortunately. CJ Beathard sniped every goal line touchdown. I think 2 touchdown passes actually went to Kyle Juszczyk, so tough for people who don't like fullbacks.
Yeah. I mean, I know one guy who started Kyle Juszczyk one game this year in my league. Too bad it wasn't yesterday. Actually, I'm facing him, so thank gosh it wasn't yesterday. But for his sakes, would have been nice for yesterday.
Yeah. And also just another surprising game where the Cardinals just couldn't get anything going on offense. That's something that I think you'll have to look into this offseason. Kyler Murray he wasn't bad, but he wasn't good. 247 yards on 31 completions, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Had 75 yards on the ground. Didn't find the end zone for a touchdown, though. So that's something that I think you'll have to look into during this offseason. Kyler Murray kind of feeling like Russell Wilson right now. He was amazing at the start of the season, but not as bad as Russell Wilson near the end, but just some games just have you questioning it.
Yeah, and we do have one from Twitter that I'm about to post here. Pride, we'll start with you on this one. Pops, a frequent flyer from this season. Thanks for all the questions and info. Will Big Ben finally have a good fantasy game? He's been struggling. They've lost 3 in a row. He's looked a little old out there. Pride, what say you? Is Big Ben done for? Or you think Big Ben gets revived against one of the best defenses in football?
No, Ben Roethlisberger's done for. I mean, I don't want to say this is something that I was hoping for, but this was something that I was hoping for going into this season, that he would just be cooked about the. I personally, I do not like Ben Roethlisberger for reasons, but yeah, I don't see, after struggling as heavily as he did against the Cincinnati Bengals defense last week. Now he has to go up against a great pass rush in the Indianapolis Colts and a really solid secondary, and he's just looked to be declining each week, and I just expect that trend to keep going down. I don't see a world where I would start him in anything this week.
Yeah. I don't think I would. It's hard to get myself to feel good starting Ben Roethlisberger this week, especially watching him the past couple of weeks. And I mean, it's like he's like going like this with the football at this point. It's actually a little painful to watch. He almost got Eric Ebron killed last week. He was leaving his wide receivers out to dry, and that I'm gonna refrain from my thoughts on Big Ben. I was down 8, and I needed Eric Ebron to get 9 to get me to the championship last week. He left Ebron out for dry. He left my team on an island. No, fantasy aside, though, I'm just concerned for Big Ben's career. I don't think he's gonna be too effective, especially against this Colts team. And I think moving forward this year, I don't think he's going to be that effective at all. It kind of reminds me of when we've seen the Peyton Manning decline come out of nowhere in Denver. Once these guys hit a certain age, they just lose it. They could be great forever, and then out of nowhere, it just happens. And it's really sad to see as a football fan. We grew up with a lot of great quarterbacks, but to me, you look at Tom Brady, you look at even Alex Smith, you look at Phillip Rivers, you look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at all these other veterans around the league who are able to make plays and still get the ball out and throw the ball pretty much effective downfield. But when you look at Big Ben, and honestly, when you look at Drew Brees a little bit, to me, those two guys are the two that perhaps look like they did lose a step a little bit, at least this season.
Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger, like you said, those 2 hospital passes that he sent to Eric Ebron and Juju Smith-Schuster last week really worry me. And I mean, same for Drew Brees. I think he had an easy touchdown in their game on Friday, and he just underthrew it. I think luckily, I think it was Emmanuel Sanders he was targeting. He played some good defense and made sure it wasn't a pick, but that should have been an easy touchdown that he just underthrew.
Yeah.
Next question coming in from Austin McBurney. Worried about Robinson's hamstring and AJ Brown's ankle/weather. Start Gio Bernard, T.Y. Hilton, or Corey Davis over either. Pretty sure that means, Allen Robinson is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury. I think he's questionable for today. And AJ Brown, obviously dealing with an ankle and not looking to be the best weather over there in Green Bay for their game against the Packers. So,
this one's loaded, Pride. This one's loaded.
Yeah, this is loaded. I mean, we saw the Bengals have a great rushing day last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, thanks in large part to just some field position that they started out in. But this week, going up against the Texans, I'm feeling confident in Gio Bernard once again to get out there and get some points. So I think I would be leaning towards Gio Bernard as your flex play over one of these guys. And as for Hilton or Davis over one of them, Corey Davis has been, I feel like Corey Davis has been better for your fantasy team than AJ Brown has been for at least most of the season, because AJ Brown has had some really great games, but I feel like Corey Davis has had more games spread out throughout the season that you've been able to rely on. So that's one thing to look at. And also T.Y. Hilton down the stretch has been looking better. Going up against the Steelers defense, though, I'm thinking that the defense, I'm not sure about the offense, but I feel like the defense is going to try their hardest to halt this 3-game losing streak. So I'm not as confident in T.Y. Hilton, especially looking at what he did during the early part of the season. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to keep this kind of hot stretch up this week. So I'd say you start Gio Bernard over one of them. And even though I hate hamstring injuries, I think you'll keep Allen Robinson out there just because you gotta love that matchup between the Bears and the Jaguars today. Even with Mitchell Trubisky slinging it, I feel like Robinson's got to have a great day.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, I was literally, as the entire time you were talking, I'm like, Mitchell Trubisky's trying to get paid this offseason, and Allen Robinson's trying to get paid this offseason. They're going up against a Jaguars team that is pretty much folding. The Bears need to win this game in order to get into the playoffs. If they win this game, they're actually in the 7th seed, if I'm not mistaken, going into the week 17 of the year. This game means so much for the Bears, and Allen Robinson gets to play against the Jaguars, who did him dirty to begin with. I just don't see Allen Robinson not suiting up in today's game and having a big game. But say, barring, in the next, when inactives come out in about 18 minutes, say something surprising happens and Allen Robinson is deemed inactive, to me, you got to start him, a no-brainer. But if you need a backup, Gio Bernard or T.Y. Hilton are guys I like. Corey Davis has been nice this year, but he's kind of been up and down, inconsistent. I'd roll with T.Y. Hilton or Gio Bernard if you do need a backup.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd still say Gio and Robinson because thank you for bringing up the weather. It does look like it's not going to be a very good night in Green Bay. Looks like at 5 p.m. through 8 p.m., there's going to be at least a 2/3% chance of snow. So might be a very snowy game up there in Green Bay, as well as it looking like it's going to be under 30 degrees. So cold and snowy. I don't really like that for the passing game, but yeah. Next question coming in from Trenton Sager. Lamar or Hurts? I'm down big because of Alvin Kamara. Ooh, you're down big, then I'd have to recommend Jalen Hurts. He's been on a good 2-game hot streak starting. He's really looked like he's brought that Eagles team together, and they're really, really fighting for that playoff spot. And so I think that today, going up against the Dallas Cowboys, I think that Jalen Hurts is going to be able to continue his hot streak, whereas the Ravens going up the New York Giants, obviously another NFC East team, very beatable, but at the same time, the Giants defense has been the best part about that team. I'm a little worried about Lamar Jackson's upper ceiling against the Giants, especially with that big front seven that I feel like will be able to get to him before he's able to scramble out of the pocket. So I'd have to say Jalen Hurts over Lamar Jackson just because I feel like Jalen Hurts is not only safer but also has the higher ceiling.
Yeah, and perhaps, hopefully you could start both of them and sneak one of them in there. Since you played Alvin Kamara, you'll probably need all the help you can get. But if only one of these guys, obviously, I agree here. I'm going Jalen Hurts. He's going against a porous defense, whereas Lamar is going against a Giants defense that needs to show up, needs to come ready to play if they want any crack at that division. I think Giants keep it a little tough. I think Jalen Hurts has a tremendous day on the ground, and I think the Eagles have their way with a little weak of a defense. I'm going Jalen Hurts as well. It's a tough one, but Hurts to me today has the advantage. I mean, we've seen him get a lot of yards on the ground his first 2 games as a starter. And he gets a lot of carries as well, and it's also opening up Miles Sanders, which opens up bigger plays for Jalen Hurts, even when they could get that running game going, something that they couldn't really do with Carson Wentz. So last week, Hurts had 63 on the ground and a touchdown, 340 through the year and 3 touchdowns. Then the week before that, he had 106 on the ground. Just really great stats from a good rookie. I'm going with Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Austin McBurney, once again, he says, also, Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. I really do like Jalen Hurts this week against the Cowboys, but I mean Josh Allen going up against the New England Patriots. Patriots just got knocked out of the playoffs last week, and the Bills just punched their ticket to the division crown last week, as well as getting a sign put up in Foxborough talking about how the Bills have the best fans. I can't remember who provided that sign. They won some kind of competition, I believe the Bills Mafia did, and decided to put it up in Foxborough. But I'm thinking that Josh Allen will also have a great night Monday night. So this is kind of tough. This is pretty tough, especially with Stephon Gilmore out. J.C. Jackson's still a great cornerback, but when you only got one great cornerback instead of two, that is kind of tough on your defense. So even though I really do like Hurts this week against the Cowboys, I don't know how I can go up against Josh Allen after the season that he's had so far.
Yeah, Josh Allen is one of these guys as well who, to me, is a perennial must start. Him and Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, are the top two must start fantasy quarterbacks, at least for this season, if you were to ask me. I mean, Josh Allen, this guy's just amazing. Whenever his weapons hurt week in and week out, you wouldn't even be able to tell that a lot of those guys are missing either. He's creating stars like Gabriel Davis and Zach Moss, and he's using a lackluster tight end core all year, and this guy is still getting it done, and he runs really well too. Last week, I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns last Saturday against Denver, and then the week before that, he had 30 yards on the ground. I think he's had 6 or 7 running touchdowns alone this year. I'm going with Josh Allen. I think Bills are they want to keep winning to try and hopefully get that number 2 seed and solidify that 2 seed. So I'm going with the Bills quarterback here. I think Josh Allen's going to have a really good game. I think Belichick is going to want a draft pick at this point.
Yeah, looking really good throughout the entire season. Josh Allen has really gotten a lot of people to championships, and even though I do believe Jalen Hurts is really going to have a good day, I don't think you could really go wrong with either, but I feel like at this point you have to start Josh Allen if you've made it to the championship.
Yeah, Josh Allen's one of those guys who probably got you to the championship as well. Wouldn't you feel a little bummed if you did bench him and then, for whatever reason you lose by a couple points and Josh Allen were the reason for those couple of points? So that's interesting. And just in from Ian Rappaport at this point, Dwayne Haskins is expected to start at quarterback for the Washington football team. So, he's expected to start today. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins had a gaffe this week as he was spotted in a club, and he got penalized by his team and some players. This will be something to keep an eye on. Pride, what say you? Do you think Dwayne Haskins has a good game today, or what do you think happens?
I don't think he has a good game at all today. I mean, I've been really disappointed in him the past couple weeks, mostly because he hasn't been getting the ball to Terry McLaurin, which I really needed him to get the ball to Terry McLaurin last week, and thanks to him, I got booted out of the playoffs because of that. But I don't really see him having a very good game today, and honestly, at this point, I think the only 2 Washington football team guys who will have a good game today are Antonio Gibson and Logan Thomas, just because Logan Thomas has been getting an inordinate amount of looks that should be going to McLaurin, but obviously they're not. But obviously last week he had a great game with Dwayne Haskins passing to him. I think with Dwayne Haskins passing again, he's going to continue to have that great amount of game, whereas I think J.D. McKissick, though he was valuable last week with Antonio Gibson looking like he's coming back, I think he's going to be relegated a bit, going to have some of his receiving work taken by Gibson, and just won't be worth it at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think something interesting to keep an eye on today as well is how not only Antonio Gibson does back from that turf toe. As we know, Gibson's missed a few weeks now, but he's primed for a comeback today. He's set to come back today, so that'll be interesting as well. But I don't know. Some things to keep an eye on are Cleveland's wide receiver situation as well. I guess, they had to have a team walkthrough this morning with in a garage. I don't know if you heard anything about that, Pride, but it seems like Cleveland is down their wide receivers today, and it said head coach Kevin Stefanski this morning says that they had a walkthrough at 8:15 in parking garage next to the hotel in freezing temperatures for the new starting wide receivers to try and get them up to speed. So I know Cleveland is at the Jets here, but I guess Cleveland literally is plucking wide receivers off the practice squad, throwing them into a freezing garage and trying to get them ready for the game today. Do the Jets have any shot at upset football here today and more chances to spoil their hopes and dreams for Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, you have to give them some chance since they are starting a bunch. Like, I'm looking at the Cleveland wide receivers right now. The only guy I know is Marvin Hall just because of that. I think he had like 100+ yard game 1 week for the Detroit Lions earlier this season. But the rest of these guys, I have no idea who they are. Jamarcus Bradley, Derek Willis. I have no idea who that is. But also, I mean, I give the Jets a slight possibility for an upset because, I mean, they've still got Nick Chubb. They've still got Kareem Hunt. They might just run the ball down the Jets' throats all game long. So if you're a Baker Mayfield owner, you might not want to start him today just because of the people he's throwing to. Obviously, you still got Harrison Bryant and Austin Hooper at tight end that can catch some passes. But as for wide receivers, I'm not expecting too many deep shots today. And I'm just expecting an old school style ground and pound football game. So Chubb owners and Hunt owners can go crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously OBJ's out, right? But then Landry, it's like he goes down, and you're like, okay, we still have Higgins. He goes down. Okay, we still have Donovan Peoples-Jones. He goes down, and now it's like, well, Chubb and Hunt, let's go, buddies. Let's step up.
Yeah, just kind of looking around. We'll take volunteers here.
It's like that Will Smith gif when he's looking around the room from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and it's empty. That's the Cleveland Browns running backs right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Throw in Denzel Ward or Terrence Mitchell in for some reps at wide receiver.
Why not?
Next question coming in from Chris Lopez. He asks Antonio Gibson or Giovanni Bernard. This is a loaded question now because, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I would have said no-brainer Antonio Gibson, but coming back from a turf toe injury, I am a little worried about how he will perform his first game back. Obviously, Washington, if they can win today, they can win today and have the Giants lose, then they basically wrap up the – actually, wait. Well, they'll basically wrap up the division title there. I think the Cowboys, if they beat the Eagles, they'll still have a chance. But if those games can go Washington's way, they'll really wrap up a lackluster division title, but a division title at that. And going up against the Carolina Panthers, their rush defense it's so-so. It's not one of the best, but it's also not one of the worst. So I could see him having another blow-up game today. But with it being his first game back and looking at Giovanni Bernard going up against the Houston Texans, I think I might be leaning Bernard just because he's got a great matchup. The Texans are the second worst rushing defense in the league, and Gio also gets more receiving work out of the backfield with the Bengals than Gibson does with Washington, as Gibson well, Washington usually gives their receiving work to J.D. McKissick out of the backfield, whereas Gibson is mostly used as a pure runner, but will get 2 or 3 receptions in a game. So I just like Giovanni Bernard's possibility better.
These guys both worry me in different ways. Gibson worries me because he's coming back from an injury, a fragile one for a running back at that if something does happen, you know, I'm starting Gibson in the league today. I hope he does good, but it's his first game back. He's a rookie running back. He's playing banged up. And, you know, all things point to maybe a tough road for him. What worries me about Giovanni Bernard, however, is the Bengals coach, Zach Taylor, has pretty much made it clear where he's not afraid to bench a guy if he fumbles or if he struggles early. Giovanni Bernard's been benched like week 14 against Dallas. He had 3 carries and wasn't seen the rest of the game. Although last week he did have 25 for 83 and a touchdown and a receiving touchdown as well against a very good Pittsburgh defense. And now he's at Houston today. I like his matchup a hell of a lot better today. He should do better, especially if they continue to give him the ball like they did last week. I'd roll with Giovanni Bernard today.
Yeah. I want to play Gibby just because he's gotten me. He's mainly one of the reasons why my teams have done so well today, and also because I don't have Giovanni Bernard. But yeah, I think Gio is set up to have a better matchup this week and just should have a better game overall.
Yeah, I agree here. And we do have another one from Pops on Twitter coming in. I'll post it now. From Twitter, James White, Sony Michel, Le'Veon Bell, non-PPR. Choose one of these guys. Not the best of options, but one of them has to prevail, perhaps. Pride. Le'Veon, Sony, or James White. Who we going with? I know James White is a free agent at year's end. You never know if he's trying to earn that big payday today. Or tomorrow, as they play on Monday.
Yeah, golly jeepers. I think I'm going to go with Le'Veon just because he's going to be the starting running back for the Chefs against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons, obviously, defense should get blown up by Kansas City, and hopefully, even though I haven't really seen it much, if at all, so far this season, hopefully if they blow up the Falcons defense early, Le'Veon will get a bunch of carries. But I mean, Le'Veon, even though I doubt he's going to get anywhere close to 20 carries, I'm predicting they'll win easily, but he's still only going to get like 15 or so carries. I still like that better than James White and Sony Michel for the Patriots, just because the Patriots, they will be down in this game. There's not a doubt in my mind going up against the Bills. They will be down. They'll be forced to throw the ball, even though Cam Newton obviously has shown his passing ability is not the same after those surgeries. And James White, I guess, would be the guy I'm most confident with. But even so, this year he's just been really all of the Patriots running backs outside of Rex Burkhead and Damian Harris have just been non-factors so far this season, even with both of them going down. So I'm not really confident in either of them. I'm not too confident in Le'Veon Bell either, but I think he's the best. He's the best one out of the pack.
Yeah, I'd have to stick with Le'Veon Bell in this question here as well for the same reasons as you. He's starting today against the Chiefs, so you have to like that. And then Sony Michel, the most action he's gotten this year has been 10 carries. So even when they do good on the ground, even when Patriots, even when he does have a high yards per carry, like he's had 10 for 74, 10 for over 100, they just don't use him a lot. Le'Veon Bell, at least will be used today with the Chiefs at a high rate, or hopefully, you never know, I guess, with Andy Reid. But the Falcons defense does have a lot of holes on it, and you look for the Chiefs to try and exploit those holes by using Le'Veon Bell, especially with the playoffs coming up. You probably figured that the Chiefs want to maybe perhaps not try and get Mahomes killed out there, so they might rely on Le'Veon Bell more today than they have previously this year. And I don't think you could either trust James White or Sony Michel. That's just picking a random name out of a hat between those two guys. I'm going with Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, it's also just crazy. I had to look it up again. And yeah, Cam Newton has double the amount of rushing touchdowns as he has passing touchdowns. So you see where the rushing work is going in the Patriots backfield.
Yep. Cam Newton is pretty much their running back this year.
Yeah, basically just running wildcat every play.
Especially without Damian Harris. At least Damian Harris provided sparks in that backfield. He had a couple nice games in there. I mean, any Alabama product running back seems to do good in the NFL, but when he's down, it seems like Cam Newton's the one-man stop there. So we'll see what happens. I do like Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. Yep. Trent Richardson really has been an outlier out of Alabama backs.
Yeah, that's very true. And he had like 12 touchdowns his rookie year, and then I don't know, Colts traded a first rounder for him, and next thing you know, he forgot how to run the football, he forgot how to block, he forgot how to hit holes, he forgot how to catch, he just forgot how to play football.
Yeah. Next question coming in once again from Chris Lopez. He asked, "This might seem like a dumb question, but DK or Higgins?" Wait, which Higgins? T. Higgins? Yeah, DK. DK. I mean, even though T. Higgins is going up against a bad defense in the Houston Texans, DK just it's DK Metcalf. I mean, even though the Seahawks offense we've really seen them kind of decline. DK has still been a solid option for you, even going up today against the Los Angeles Rams. He's expected to be covered by Jalen Ramsey for most of the game, but I have more confidence in DK breaking off a couple huge receptions than I am with. Is it Ryan Finley once again as the starting quarterback for the Bengals? I have more confidence of DK breaking off a couple huge receptions than I am of Ryan Finley making T. Higgins valuable.
Yeah, T. Higgins, obviously ever since Joe Burrows went down, he's been missing Joe Burrow a lot. I mean, here's T. Higgins' numbers as of late: 3 for 31, 5 for 49, 5 for 56, no touchdowns. And then in week 12, he had 5 for 44 and a touchdown. But before that, 3 for 26 and no touchdowns. Again, ever since Burrows went down, he's only had a total of 21 catches. That's really nothing in 5 weeks. 5 weeks, 21 catches. And the most receiving yards is 56. He's only gotten a touchdown in one of those games. You really, 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 really have to go DK Metcalf, barring any last minute craziness happening to Metcalf. To me, it's a no-brainer. You go Metcalf.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Brandon Allen is healthy, so he'll probably be the starting quarterback for the Bengals, but it might as well be Ryan Finley.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Might as well be Ryan Finley. I mean, at least he beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like either of them will be as good as the other, so that doesn't really change it that much. DK. Next question coming in from Michael Tizano. Does that sound right? Michael Tizano. He asked Russell Gage, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, T.Y. Hilton, Kiki QT, Tony Pollard, need 2 wide receiver and a flex facing Kamara. Please help. I'm sure there are a lot of people in that Kamara boat today. Thinking about the matchups, though, I mean, Tony Pollard looked really good last week filling in for Ezekiel Elliott. I want to say Zeke is still...
He's supposed to play today last time I heard.
Okay, yeah, he's supposed to play today, so yeah, I'm not feeling Tony Pollard as a backup option this week. So out of those guys, I really like Kiki QT this week. I feel like I've been talking. Yeah, Texans going up against the Bengals. Kiki has shown to be really good when he's the wide receiver 2 on that team, behind Brandon Cooks. So I'm expecting another good week against the Bengals, and Deshaun Watson just kind of show once again that wins and losses are not a QB stat this week against the Bengals. And other than that, I want to say Russell Gage will be another good start for you with Julio Jones out once again. He looked pretty good last week and has really capitalized on the games that Julio Jones has missed, being the number 2 wide receiver. I think this will be a tough day against the Kansas City Chiefs, but I still believe that he'll be able to find the end zone once to make you happy about it. And out of the rest, T.Y. Hilton, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel, I think T.Y. Hilton going up against a tough Pittsburgh defense and Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson going up against a Washington secondary that's not too shabby. I think that's a tough decision, but I want to say that I think your best option will be Curtis Samuel. The Panthers seem to really want to try and get Curtis Samuel involved in the offense. And like I kind of said on the podcast this week, Curtis Samuel, he always guarantees you supplementary points, like points that are, fine, but you really want a touchdown to go with them. He just doesn't always get the touchdown to make those supplementary points look good. If he can get you that touchdown this week against Washington, he's going to be your best play.
Yeah, this one's tough. There's a lot of options here. Kiki Kuti has been pretty dang good when he's filled in. He has 3 touchdowns in the past 5 games and 141 yards in one of those games. Cincinnati's D did look decent against Pittsburgh last week, though. And then you got T.Y. Holton, who's been popping off of late. I don't really like Tony Pollard this week with Ezekiel Elliott playing. It seems like Pollard's ready to go back into the number 2 running back role there. Oh, man, Lord help you facing Elvin Kamara. But nonetheless, I like Curtis Samuel for his flexibility, perhaps. And I like T.Y. Hilton, and I like Kiki Kute. Those are the 3 I would roll out today. And I think those 3 have high ceilings. I think they could each get a touchdown at least. Tony Pollard, if the Cowboys get behind early, he might not see much of the field. Russell Gage and I don't know, Russell Gage. I'm not crazy on him or Robbie Anderson today. I'd go Curtis Samuel, T.Y. Hilton, and Kiki Kuti.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of these guys have tough matchups. I mean, Kansas City has a pretty good secondary. I feel like Russell Gage could struggle against. Curtis Samuel and Robbie Anderson. I mean, some guys in that Washington secondary, Ronald Darby and Landon Collins, could cause some troubles for them, and T.Y. Hilton going up against, obviously, Minkah Fitzpatrick in that secondary. But, yeah, those guys for me, I think, are the guys I'm most confident in. But, yeah, it's going to be a tough day.
And we got some actives and inactives here quick. Tyreek Hill, Daniel Jones, Marquise Brown, Allen Robinson, Khalil Mack officially active, officially inactive, Mark Ingram, Marcus Peters, and then Haskins is officially starting for the Washington football team as well.
Yeah, so good to see that Allen Robinson will be active for today. I'm hoping he can get some points. Honestly, I kind of do hope that the Bears win and make it in the playoffs and then just get swept out of them. But
that'd be nice.
Yeah. Another question from Pops on Twitter. He asks, Ebron or Ingram, non-PPR? Ooh. 2 guys known for dropping the ball. That's tough.
And Ingram somehow made the Pro Bowl this year, I believe.
He did? Oh, my gosh. I haven't looked in depth to the Pro Bowl rosters that much.
They should change the name from Pro Bowl to popularity contests anyhow.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that I care about the Pro Bowl is the only Pro Bowlers that I care about are the long snappers, just because for some reason they don't vote on long snapper for the All-Pro team, and so Pro Bowl is all they got.
Yeah, that is weird that they don't do it for the All-Pro team. And actually, with their long snappers don't get paid as handsomely as other positions, so the Pro Bowl bonus is a nice little bonus for those guys, especially from the winning team.
Yeah, it is. But back to Ebron and Ingram. I think I'd
maybe go with Ingram just because he has more potential in yardage, and Ebron wasn't very much involved before his injury last week. It seemed as if Vance McDonald was on the field a little more, at least with Evan Ingram. He's going to get the majority share of the tight end work for the Giants. I like Ingram in potential for yards especially. Ebron is kind of a touchdown or bust guy, whereas Ingram has still had 1 or 2 okay games this year without getting touchdowns. Although Ingram has only had 1 receiving and 1 running touchdown this year, I think the Giants have to change things up, think outside of the box today to try and get a victory. I like Evan Ingram today.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I have been going down on the Steelers wide receivers as of recently, and it's really unfair if I leave Eric Ebron out of that, since he also has to deal with Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball. And yeah, even though Eric Ebron was able to have a good stretch during the middle of the season where he was able to almost consistently find the end zone, over the past couple of weeks he has seen his production dip. So yeah, I think Evan Ingram will probably be the better start here, especially with Pittsburgh having to go up against a tough Indianapolis Colts defense. And yeah, obviously with Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball, whereas the Ravens have a good rushing front seven, but their linebackers, they don't really have too many good coverage linebackers, and so Ingram could find some good deep balls over the middle, and so yeah, Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I'd prefer Ingram to Ebron here as well. And I just read as well that Golden Tate is inactive today for the Giants too. So Golden Tate, a guy who hasn't done too much this year for the Giants, he's out today as well. He has a calf injury and he's officially out today too. So Golden Tate ruled out this week as well, inactive.
Yeah, that's it's tough. I mean, really, none of the Giants wide receivers really been helpful for you this year. They've all been very lackluster. Really, most wide receivers in the NFC East have been very lackluster this year. I mean, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb have had some good games, but they've not really been consistent in those games. Terry McLaurin, he's also had to deal with a lot of quarterback turnover this year and hasn't been able to find some consistency. And obviously, the Giants and Eagles just, I mean, ever since the Eagles, it's surprising. Ever since the Eagles wide receivers have got healthy, all of them have not been anywhere
Like
near.
what
It's
happened
like,
to Travis Fulgham? That guy like fell off the face of the earth.
yeah, he just got like pushed back in the depth chart and just hasn't gotten the targets that he was getting early on in the season. And Alshon Jeffrey and the rest just haven't. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
Like here's a 5 week span of Fulgham at one point this year. 2 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown, 10 catches for 152 yards and a touchdown, 6 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown, 5 catches for 73 yards, and then 6 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. So you're thinking going into the bye week, this guy looks like he is number one receiver upside perhaps in the Eagles offense. And then since then, out of the bye week, it's like they just sucked this guy out of the playbook. Week 10, 1 catch for 8 yards. Week 11, 1 catch for 8 yards. Week 12, 2 for 16. Week 13 and 14, no catches combined. Then last week, 2 catches for 30 yards. I just don't know if that makes too much sense to me. I wonder if there's some behind the scenes stuff there, but we've seen a wide receiver on the rise, and now all of a sudden he has about 4 catches in the past 6 weeks.
I know he was looking so good. He was looking so good at the early on in the season. And now over the past 4 games, he's only gotten 4 receptions. He's only gotten 6 targets in those games. And I mean, what's most alarming for me is week 14, he only saw 11 snaps. So he's seen his snap count drastically decrease after week 11, and it's disappointing. I don't know what Doug Peterson's doing.
Yeah, Doug Peterson's the man of mystery, and a lot of people just assume his job's safe because they've won a Super Bowl as of late. Well, not so fast here. This Eagles team, they got a lot of decisions to make. It seems as if Carson Wentz is getting paid a lot of money. Doug Peterson is losing favor in Philly, and the Philly fan base is pretty crazy out there. So I'm not really sure what's to come in Philly, but between Carson Wentz and Peterson, there's probably going to be a good amount of changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question from Matt Souls. He asks, facing Kamara and Gaskin. Dude, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm sorry. Start Mike Davis or pivot to Mooney or Valdez Scantling. Mike Davis, I want to say he's been solid for you the past couple of weeks, but solid is not what you need right now. Like you said, you're going up against Alvin Kamara and Miles Gaskin. Miles Gaskin also having a great game last night against the Raiders. I think you should pivot towards Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He hasn't had many games that have really paid in your favor so far this season, but when he does big. I mean, 80 a couple weeks ago against Detroit, 85 yards and a touchdown. Earlier in the season against Jacksonville, 149 yards and a touchdown. Before that, San Francisco had 2 receptions for only 53 yards, but 2 touchdowns. When he gets a touchdown, he also has some big yardage behind that. So I would I would suggest going up today against Tennessee. Tennessee, a terrible secondary. Breon Borders gets burned every week. So hopefully they pair up Valdez Scantling with Breon Borders, because then I guarantee he'll have another game like he's had against Minnesota, Detroit, and Jacksonville this season. So I would pivot more towards him just because I mean he is going to boom or bust for you. And at this point, with the guys that you've had to go up against, that's where you have to go. With Mike Davis, he's going to be a safe play. He's going to get you some points, but you can't just be satisfied with that. You need to go big or go home at this point.
Yeah, I think Darnell Mooney is definitely out of the question, and then it comes down to Mike Davis or Valdez Scantling. As Pride said, Valdez Scantlin's a guy who's either literally 0 points or about 15 to 20 points. So he's really, really been boom or bust this year. And Mike Davis is up against a tough Washington defense. However, I might lean towards Mike Davis only because he at least has potential for 20 touches or 2 touchdowns. You're not going to get 20 touches out of either of the other two guys, and their 2 touchdown games are probably way less likely to happen. Whereas Mike Davis, is starting running back, could get lucky with a couple vulture goal line touchdowns, and then boom, that's already 12.2 points right there with 1 yard carries if he does get 2 of those. Or, Mike Davis has the potential to catch 42 receiving yards. One game this year, he had 60 receiving yards on 9 receptions and a touchdown. Although I think Marcus Valdez-Scantling is really boom or bust, I think that still, even with that, Mike Davis has the potential to get you more points if he gets lucky, if he gets a couple touchdowns. Say he gets 2 1-yard rushing touchdowns and, 5 catches for 40 yards. Well, that's already 16, 17 points right there. Not saying it's going to be easy against that Washington defense, but I just think the potential that leaves the door open with not only Mike Davis, but any starting running back. I'm often fan the time of starting running backs in fantasy. They just always have the touch potential and the potential to have a good fantasy game. And for that reason only, I'm going Mike Davis.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm still hoping with just how bad that Titans secondary is, and hopefully with them focusing on Devontae Adams that he can break out a game. But I mean, going with a running back is never a bad option. Well, going with a starting running back is almost never a bad option. Nathan K comes in and he asks Rager, Zach Moss, or Mooney in standard.
Well, I'd wipe off. I don't know. I don't think Rager hasn't really done much for me. I would personally almost eliminate him right off the bat to this point in time. And Mooney, I mean, I kind of like Zach Moss. I mean, it's a Buffalo backfield that you never really know who's going to get the touchdown between Josh Allen, Moss, Singletary. But I like Zach Moss. At least last week he had 81 yards on the ground. I mean, this week it's tough sledding against New England. Rager hasn't really done much. This one's a tough one. I'm going to stir it over to Pride. I'd maybe go Zach Moss.
Yeah, I think I was leaning more towards Zach Moss as well. Darnell Mooney, he's not been too much of a factor. Jalen Rager is coming off of a game where he's seen the most amount of targets so far this season with 8. Also had the most amount of receptions he had so far this season with 5, and only got you 49 yards. In standard leagues, you're not even getting points for the reception. So that's just about 4.9 points. And actually, now that I look at it, it'd only be 3.9 points since he also had negative 10 yards rushing. So I'm staying away from Rager. Darnell Mooney doesn't give you too much upside. I mean, he's had touchdowns in the past 2 games, but he still just hasn't gotten you too many yards along with those touchdowns. Whereas Zach Moss, he's been more used in the Buffalo backfield. And I mean, 13 carries in 2 consecutive games. He's seen, even though they seem to go back with Devin Singletary against San Francisco, for most of the season, it's looked like Zach Moss has gotten the majority of the carries. And so I think I'm also going to be starting Zach Moss. A little worried against the Patriots defense, but comparatively to the other 2 guys, that's who I'm most comfortable with.
Yeah, that's who I'd have to say as well. I think you hit it on the head that he's probably been the, quote unquote lead back for more games and not in Buffalo, although Josh Allen likely is that lead back there. But I'd roll with Zach Moss and hope he could get in the end zone on Monday night. Mooney and Rager are never for sure things to even see looks their way. So for that reason, for that sole purpose, as I keep saying, I like running backs and the potential of the running backs. I'm going to stick with Zach Moss here. I'm going to agree with Pride and say Zach Moss.
Yeah. Well, less than 10 minutes left in the live stream. It is 10:52 a.m. right now, Central Time. And really just have any more questions, just get them in before 11 o'clock. We'll answer them. And as of right now, just...
Here's an interesting story. It says Bills offensive coordinator Brian DeBole is expected to be in demand as head coaching candidate. So I feel like there's a couple of guys out there between Mr. Brian DeBole, Eric Bieniemy. Pride, here's a question. If you're one of these teams, Jacksonville, probably going to get rid of Doug Marrone. Jets are probably going to get rid of Adam Gase. You already have Atlanta having an opening. Houston has an opening. Detroit has an opening. There's going to be plenty of openings, at least 6 to 8, in my opinion, for head coaching spots around the NFL. Who is one offensive, defensive, special teams coordinator, old head coach? Who's just one guy on your radar for any of these teams to hire? Who do you think is the most likely guy to fill a head coaching job?
I mean, each team has different needs that they're looking for in a head coach. And so I think, obviously, those 2 that you pulled up, Brian DeBole and Eric Bieniemy, I feel like it's almost guaranteed that those guys will find a head coaching job just with how popular they've been in head coaching talks. But one guy who I haven't seen too many people talk about that I personally would like my team to hire as a new head coach is Matt Everfless from the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, we've seen he's done a great job this year with the Colts defense. He's a really intense kind of guy who I think has that kind of intensity that a head coach really needs. And he's kind of worked his way up throughout his entire career. And I think after this season, with what people have seen, what he's been able to do with the Indianapolis Colts, not just this year, but in years past, they've had a lot of really talented. They've had a lot of rookies that not a lot of people have thought about coming in that he's really made into great players. Just like this year, Julian Blackmon, he's had a great season for them. I forget who's the other safety that they had just a couple of years ago. Hooker.
Malik Hooker.
Yeah, Malik Hooker a couple of years ago, a couple seasons ago. He also made him also Darius Leonard, obviously. And so I think it's time for Everfless to find a head coaching job as well. But I mean, like you said, Eric Bieniemy and Brian DeBole, just with how popular they are, I can definitely see them getting picked up by teams.
Yeah, and 2 guys I've heard from college, Jim Harbaugh and Urban Meyer, 2 big names from those ranks perhaps. Harbaugh has obviously had success in the NFL before with the 49ers, and he groomed Andrew Luck in college. And not that he did great at Michigan, but he had some winning seasons there. And now Urban Meyer, a guy who's been out of Ohio State now. Yeah, he's looking to get into the NFL rankings, perhaps. One guy I like besides Bieniemy and DeBall, and I think your option's great. I think he's been a tremendous defensive coordinator for the Colts, and he's really gotten some guys to play with their head on a swivel. One guy I like a lot is Jim Caldwell. He's coached a couple teams before. He's had success in Indianapolis in 3 years there. They won the AFC South in 2 out of his 3 seasons coached. They went 14-2 and 10-6. And then in year 3, they were without Peyton Manning. So, of course, they went 2-14. Then they fired him. And then in Detroit, he went 11-5 playoffs, 7-9, which ain't terrible for Detroit. Then he went 9-7 playoffs, 9-7. They missed the playoffs, and they fired him. So in Detroit, he had 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 winning seasons, one of them 11-5, and they fired him. He went 36-28 in Detroit. He's 62-50 overall as a head coach, and that includes 4 years in Detroit and 1 year in Indianapolis without Peyton Manning. I just don't know how this guy does not have a head coaching job as we speak, and he's had a lot of years coached at Wake Forest as well with the bowl game wins. So there's just a lot of credibility behind Jim Caldwell, and I hope that he gets another chance in the NFL.
Yeah. Maybe it's just every team's just looking at him just like, how could you not turn Curtis Painter into a good quarterback? That's which, I mean, that's unfair.
It's like trying to put a circle peg into a square slot. It's like, and then Detroit, I mean, talk about pathetic. They fired a guy who won 3 out of 4 winning seasons with the damn Detroit Lions just to bring in Patricia. But I don't know. That's a head scratcher. Meanwhile, we got Jarvis Landry tweeting, wishing I was with the Browns today. Let's effing go. Bring that energy. Jarvis is amped up watching the game from the couch. That is going to be an interesting one. I think the Jets might be an upset alert this week.
Yeah. I don't know why, but throughout this entire season, I've always been interested to see how, like, guys that they bring in play. I mean, like, I was attached to my TV when Kendall Hinton played. I'm probably going to be attached to my TV again, just watching this brand spanking new receiving core for the Browns, just see how they do. I doubt they'll throw the ball a lot, but I'm still really interested to see how their passing game goes.
Yeah, and this year also in the quirkiness, like you said, Hinton threw a pass, and they were saying too that this is the first year where we have seen a game take place on every day of the week. So we've had quite the NFL season. Watch these Browns receivers get like 500 receiving yards today. There's stars to be made. That would be insane.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of their profiles right now. Obviously, we kind of know Marvin Hall with him playing earlier in the season with the Lions. It's like another one, Derek Willis from Texas Tech. Looks like he might have played with Patrick Mahomes when he was down there. Jamarcus Bradley from Louisiana, a raging Cajun right there. And so 2 guys I've never heard of before. I'm excited to see how they play today.
And it's not a good thing when Willies is still listed as a free agent by ESPN in fantasy football.
That's pretty funny. But
yeah, Derek Willies projected 4.3, but the man, the myth, the legend is still a free agent.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be running the ball mostly with Nick Chubb, and mostly I'm sure most of the targets will go to Kareem Hunt, but I'm still excited to see how they pull this receiving core together, because I mean, it's been a very interesting season just seeing the guys that they've been able to pull off seem to just like get out of nowhere and sometimes have a great game. I mean, we kind of talked about him earlier. Travis Fulgham had a great start to the season. Savon Ahmed for the Dolphins. No one really knew who he was, but when Myles Gaskin went down and when they released Howard and Breida, he was their guy and he performed really well for you. So I'm interested to see if they have another one of those guys in Cleveland today.
Yeah, same here. We'll see if they can make history, break the ice a little bit, and help some people in their week 16. We know people have week 15 and week 17 championship matchups, but if you're in week 16 championship today, good luck to you. Hopefully, maybe if you have one of those historic Browns guys, they can help you get a W.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us today. We are an hour away from kickoff here on this beautiful week 16 Sunday morning. Hope you guys had a good time and hope that you can pull out this week with a W. I'm Pride Tones. Do you have any last words?
Nope, it's been another fun week, and yeah, I look forward to perhaps one last week, week 17. I don't know if we plan on doing it, but if we do, I'm looking forward to that one last time.
Yeah, let's do it one last
Yeah.
week next week for people who have week 17 championships, or even if you just have some DFS questions. We'll be here. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you guys next week.